I don't know which parents need to hear this, but your young child does not require an iPad everywhere you go. You do not need to hand it to them the minute you sit down at a restaurant. You do not need to hand it to them the minute they enter the car. You do not need to hand it to them the minute they enter the door for returning home from school.
Just because you see a kid on their iPhone or iPad at a restaurant does not mean that they're an...
Everybody wants to bash on Gen Z, but did you guys know that Gen Alpha can't read? I was talking to one of our church kids, and he very boldly told me, yeah, I don't know how to read, and neither does anybody in my class.
Hey besties, let's talk about something that's been on my mind lately, iPad kids. You know the ones. The kids who can't go anywhere without their tablet, who throw tantrums when their screen time is cut short, and who seem to be more connected to their devices than to the real world. It's easy to dismiss this as just kids being kids, but the reality is a lot darker than we think. Today, we're going to break down how iPad addiction is shaping an entire generation, leading to struggles in school, relationships, and personal development. And besties, it's not looking good. So let's start with the basics. How did we even get here? Years ago, kids played outside, read books, and engaged with their families. But then came the rise of the iPad, and suddenly, screens became the ultimate babysitter. Parents, exhausted from work and daily responsibilities, found it easier to hand their child a device rather than deal with constant questions and hyperactive energy. At first, it seemed harmless, just a little entertainment, right? But besties, the truth is, it turned into a full-blown addiction before anyone realized what was happening. The worst part? These kids never learned how to self-soothe, entertain themselves, or handle boredom. Their brains became wired for constant stimulation, and now, they don't know how to function without it. That's a problem.
We're iPad parents. If you try to give us some kind of advice and you don't have kids...
I don't have kids, but I get to work with yours. And let me fucking tell you, I know exactly which students in my classroom have an iPad at home and which ones don't. Your child may be able to sing the ABCs and recite it perfectly, or count to 10 or 20 or more than that, but do they have fine motor skills? Are they able to use a pincer grasp in day-to-day tasks? Not to mention, more than often, children who have unlimited screen time at home have behavioral issues in the classroom that you don't see at home because there's more students and less attention on them in a classroom environment than there is at home. I'm all for using iPads at the grocery store, on a car drive, but there is no need for your child to be on an iPad every single day. Do you not want children? Is that not the whole point? Why are you giving them an iPad instead of interacting with them?
I just saw this video. I couldn't stitch it because I think it got deleted, but it was like this woman saying, we're iPad parents. If you don't have children, you don't have the right to give us advice, or something like that. Let me tell you something. I work with literal infants starting at 3 months to 3 years old. And I'm not like a childcare provider. I've worked in childcare before, but I am now in research, working with typically developing infants and children. And let me tell you, every single time an iPad kid comes in, us, the researchers, we know. It doesn't take very long to tell. There is a big difference between babies who are exposed to screens 24/7 and babies who are not, and you can tell within like the first 10 minutes of meeting a baby. At one point, we give the parent an iPad, and if the baby cannot have that iPad, all hell breaks loose. It is like the end of the world. Like, I've seen babies who are 8, 10 months old who have zero interest in like actual baby toys, but like freak out when they see the iPad. And it's really concerning. Personally, I think your method of parenting is flawed if there's a lot of research showing that it is flawed and that people can tell like that if your child has screen time or not.
Now let's talk about school. Teachers everywhere are noticing the same trend. Kids who grew up on screens struggle to focus in class. Their attention spans are shrinking, making it almost impossible for them to sit through lessons. Homework feels like a punishment because their brains are wired for quick bursts of dopamine, not extended periods of effort. Reading comprehension? Poor. Critical thinking skills? Weak. Problem-solving abilities? Almost non-existent. Many of these kids are used to learning passively through videos and games, but real-world learning doesn't work that way. They lack patience, and as a result, their grades suffer. This isn't about intelligence. Many of these kids are bright, but they've been conditioned to expect learning to be easy and entertaining. When faced with challenges, they shut down.
But I need to throw down a very serious rant because I'm experiencing something that is really getting on my last damn nerves. So basically, I'm a teacher, I do supply work, I work in various different schools. I've been teaching for like 10 years. I've been in the game for 10 years. And before that, I was a teaching assistant, so I've been in it even longer than 10 years. One thing that I'm noticing, this generation Alpha, bloody hell, they are a piece of work. And I'm seeing some teachers in America saying this, but so I work in year 2 and oh my God, I feel victimized by some of these 6 and 7 year olds. Like, they don't listen, they're violent as hell. Their academic abilities are so much lower than I've seen in my previous teaching years. They're helpless. You ask a question, they're just staring at you. They still can't form their letters. Like before, in a class of 30, you might have had maybe 5 or 6 students that, you know, needed support to access the curriculum. Now it's like the other way around. You have 5 or 6 students that can access the curriculum, and then the rest of the class really struggles. It is bizarre. I don't know how we're raising them or what on earth is going on, but they can't manage their emotions. They're throwing tantrums left, right, and center. They hide under tables, they storm out, they don't listen to instructions. You tell them something, they just mock you and repeat after you what you've just said. They don't be quiet. It is stressful as hell. Like, it makes you contemplate walking out of the profession because it is just too much. Now, I don't know what on earth is going on. If someone knows, like, let me into like the secret as to what's going on. But oh my God, it is like, it is only lunchtime. What time is it? It is like just almost 1:45. So I haven't even done a full teaching day and I've already had enough. Like, I'm ready to go home. Like, I'm so over it. I'm so done. You lot, what on earth is going on with Generation Alpha?
Things I've noticed about teaching Gen Alpha. Oh my goodness. My name's Cassandra. I used to be a teacher, left in 2020. I'm back in now. The biggest difference, teaching Gen Alpha, they do not care about authority. It's wild. And I've got quite a lot of respect for that, actually. They are so aware of their power and what they want and what they don't want, and they are not afraid to share it. I can see how that can be a problem. They don't buy into the argument that this is good for you, so learn it. It is at odds, though, with a culture of a school, which is you comply, there's a hierarchy, there is a behaviour policy. Gen Alpha don't care about that. And this actually causes, I mean, maybe this feeds some of the reason why there are so many teachers leaving, because it feeds into a kind of cultural change, a generational clash between what we had as an older generation of learners. We were told to shut up and get on with it. We have all kinds of suppressed trauma from the systems that raised us. So Gen Alpha, they're aware, I think, a lot more of what is causing them harm, and they're not playing, which I think is quite good, really. I think it's a lot healthier. I think it does mean that we as the adult need to change our approach. It's really interesting. This is where I think the conversation needs to happen. I do think it challenges the systems that we have created to contain them. How do we adapt? If you are genuinely listening to the needs of the people in front of you in the classroom, how do we adapt? I'd be interested to know what ideas you have for making our classrooms a safe place, and young people as well. Like, what do you need to thrive at school? This is what I see with Gen Alpha. They are basically kicking off because the system that we have built for them is not serving them, and they are letting us know. And the adults are annoyed about this because, you know, they're interpreting this as like a lack of resilience or a sense of apathy or a low sense of self-esteem, and maybe all of that is true, but you have to deal with what's in front of you, right? So if the young people are saying, this is not working for me, screw you, and that is a very nice way of saying it. If they're saying that, then surely we need to, we're the adults, we're the people who can change. Just because it worked for some kids doesn't mean that it works for all kids. I do think this speaks to a wider cultural shift that we need to do in the education system, which is to make it more human, and embrace the agency that Gen Alpha feel, because it ain't going away.
Now, besties, we need to talk about something serious, the behavior issues. iPad kids are short-tempered, impatient, and, quite frankly, disrespectful. Have you ever seen a kid lose their mind because their tablet died? It's terrifying. These children are growing up with zero frustration tolerance. They're used to getting what they want, instantly, at the touch of a screen. When something doesn't go their way in the real world, they don't know how to handle it. This leads to aggressive behavior, emotional outbursts, and an inability to regulate emotions. And worst of all, many parents don't correct this behavior because they don't want to deal with the tantrums. Instead of teaching kids how to cope with disappointment, they just hand them the device again to keep them quiet. It's a cycle that's setting them up for failure in adulthood.
Can we talk about the rise of parents not parenting their children and somehow letting them play games full volume on their phone or iPad in public? I never thought I would talk about this because I'm not a mom, so who am I to say whatever? But I just feel like at a certain point, it's just common courtesy to other people. I don't know. So basically, I was at the doctor's office yesterday and 2 instances happened in the one waiting room. So I'm waiting to get checked in and they're checking my insurance and everything. And there is a 5-year-old child just screaming nonstop. Screaming. The parents are just sitting there in the waiting room chairs, just looking at their phone, not doing anything. The kid literally has the lungs of an opera singer, would not stop screaming. It was so bad that when I got to the front of the line and was talking to the woman, she said, "My kids would never act that way, XYZ. And then a woman waiting for her appointment walked by us and said, "I need to go back to a waiting room. I don't care if it's not my turn. I need to go away from this right now." Oh, so finally, that family went and they were in the waiting room and it was their turn, whatever. So then I go to sit down because I'm waiting for my appointment, and tell me why in this huge waiting room, I'm across the room from this 11-year-old kid. He's sitting there in the chair like this with his mom's phone. Maybe it was his phone. I don't know. He's sitting full volume playing a shooting game in a woman's health clinic, mind you. So there's a bunch of pregnant women around and he's just listening to this game full volume. The mom's sitting there, her and her daughter are sitting there just doing nothing, sitting around. I couldn't even believe it. There were people just looking at the kids. I was staring at him because what are you doing? Has etiquette in public disappeared? Like, genuinely? I don't know what this is about. Like, is this post 2020 aftermath? I really don't know. But at what point was it okay for children to nonstop scream and parents do nothing about it, and also listen to videos or games in public full volume? Because that's not the only time I have heard children in public play on their iPad or phone with something full volume, which is completely disrespectful to the people around them. At least give them headphones. What the heck?
Just because you see a kid on their iPhone or iPad at a restaurant does not mean that they're an iPad.
Yes, it does. Yes, it does. If the kid can't go 15 minutes, you say, without, having an iPad in their face for constant stimulation, that is kind of by definition an iPad kid. And don't get me wrong, like, if you want to raise your kid that way, no shame. It just becomes society's problem when they get older, But yeah, they're an iPad kid. And what's wild to me is that with all the studies coming out and all the teachers and other professionals that deal with Gen Alpha kids are saying, like, hey, these kids aren't well adjusted, there's serious issues going on. The parents of those Gen Alpha kids are like, must be gluten, I guess. Couldn't possibly be the tablet or the phone that we put in front of their face since they were 1 year old that has highly addictive, highly stimulating media. But that's not to say that media is bad. Millennials and Gen Z, we all consume media growing up. We all play video games. We all watch TV. But it's very different than the TV shows and media and video games that kids are consuming in the younger generations. And so with all of that going on, I don't know why parents aren't, noticing it and taking more, initiative to not raise iPad babies. But, guess we'll never know.
Let's be real. Social skills are dying. These kids don't know how to hold conversations, make eye contact, or navigate real-life interactions. They're more comfortable texting than talking, more at ease in a virtual world than in reality. Playdates? Awkward. Teamwork? A disaster. When conflict arises, they don't know how to resolve it because they never had to deal with disagreements in real life. They also struggle with empathy. When your whole life is based around self-gratification and instant entertainment, it's hard to develop deep emotional connections. They lack patience, struggle to share, and often seem entitled. And let's not even start on the anxiety and depression rates skyrocketing among kids glued to their screens.
Hey, stop shaming parents about screen time, okay?
Screen time has been correlated to delayed fine motor skills, to delayed language skills, and delayed social emotional skills. Fine motor skills are delayed because they only know how to point. You'd be surprised how these iPad kids don't even know what to do with pencils, crayons, or markers. It's truly a tragedy to watch. And additionally, they don't have language because they just watch a screen. They don't communicate or practice saying words, which is why you see these kids with delayed language skills and often have behaviors because they don't engage with similar age children and they don't have the language to talk about their wants and needs because they don't have that social interaction because they're always on a screen. Stop raising iPad kids. Knock it off. Be so for real.
Everybody wants to bash on Gen Z, but did you guys know that Gen Alpha can't read? I was talking to one of our church kids and he very boldly told me, yeah, I don't know how to read and neither does anybody in my class. Mind you, this kid is starting 5th grade in August, okay? And I thought he was playing, so I told him, you know, kids will do anything for money. So I was like, I'll give you $10 if you could tell me what this bag says. It said chips in giant letters. And I said, you could sound it out, you could try spelling it or whatever to help you read it. Because I thought he was lying. So this dude goes, CHIPS. And I go, what does that say? And he goes, potatoes. Y'all, we're cooked as a society.
I keep seeing shit about how Gen Alpha cannot read. And as someone who is a part of Gen Z, please, for the love of God, can we all agree, no iPads? At least 15 minutes a day with reading, and if they play games, they have to be educational. Most of the video games and stuff that we played when we were kids were educational. I used Leapfrog like nobody's business. My parents made me read, they made me sound stuff out, use phonetic. I played outside, I played with my friends. We should not just be sticking an iPad in front of a kid or a cell phone. That's not okay. I think TV is fine. I think TV can be educational, and I think it can be less of an addiction per se than iPads and phones. It's not like you can bring your TV to bed with you or something if you have a TV in the living room, you know? So I hope we all agree we're actually going to spend time with our kids, and if we actually want kids, we're going to do that. And they're not going to be little illiterate shits. So millennials, get on your fucking shit and make your kids fucking read. You idiots. It starts in the home too. That's another thing. Teaching and manners and behavior, everything starts at home. Everything. You can't rely on teachers to be your babysitters, to be your teachers, and to do just everything for your child. You yourself as a parent need to be doing that even more. All right? Good talk.
So what happens when these kids become adults? Besties, it's not looking good. These are the future employees, partners, and parents of the world, and many of them are ill-equipped to handle basic responsibilities. In the workplace, they struggle with deadlines, authority, and tasks that require deep thinking. Employers are already complaining that young workers can't stay focused or solve problems independently. In relationships, they struggle with communication, patience, and compromise. When faced with difficulties, instead of working through them, they often just shut down or look for distractions. As parents, they might continue the cycle, handing screens to their own kids instead of engaging with them. If nothing changes, we're looking at a generation that is disconnected from reality, unable to handle stress, and addicted to instant gratification.
I don't know which parents need to hear this, but your young child does not require an iPad everywhere you go. You do not need to hand it to them the minute you sit down at a restaurant. You do not need to hand it to them the minute they enter the car. You do not need to hand it to them the minute they enter the door for returning home from school. Now, quick disclaimer, I am not talking about children on the autism spectrum, and I'm not talking about nonverbal children. I am talking about just your average run-of-the-mill, typical preschool age child. Or kindergarten age child, or first grade, or second grade, third grade, whatever age you want to go with. My expertise is preschool and kindergarten, so I'm going to speak to that. But if you want to add in any other ages, feel free to. There's so many other tools and resources and things that you can do with your child, including just having a conversation with them, that you can use at a restaurant setting or really anywhere else that does not require sitting down without a word being said, shoving a tablet immediately in their face. You give them no time to be bored, no time to take in their surroundings, and no time to actually learn how to act in these settings. And I get it, you want to avoid the meltdown, you want to avoid the behavior, and you want to avoid the problem. And logically, it makes sense. But just because we want to avoid things like that happening in public settings does not mean we need to try to stop it before it even happens without even figuring out why it's happening. Because for young children before the age of 6, every time they have a meltdown or a massive behavior or whatever it may be, they're trying to communicate something with you to some degree. And if you're constantly shoving an iPad in their face before they even have a chance to receive a set of information in a way that upsets them to the point of having a meltdown, you're never going to be able to work through those problems with them at a young age because you're never even allowing them to occur. And I get it, these iPads have fantastic, wonderful, highly intelligently designed academic games that they can play while they're in these settings. So you can shove an iPad in their face and it's like this letter number game where it's fun and it's entertaining and it's colorful and it's beautiful, but you as their parent are their first teacher. That is your job. As a parent, you will always and forever be the first and primary educator of your child. And that is something no iPad can ever take away. Anyway, just some 2 cents from your friendly Montessori 3 to 6-year-old teacher. Have a great day.
I need everybody else in my generation to promise that we are not going to raise iPad.
Almost all of the comments on this video were talking about how kids can't read, how Gen Alpha can't read. And as a literacy specialist, I can say that this is 100% true. If your kid has to choose between an iPad and reading, they are going to choose an iPad every time. So 68% of 4th graders in 2022 in the nation's report card were reading below proficiency at their grade level. Kids are struggling to read. And if we aren't going to be proactive as parents, then we're not going to solve this crisis any other way. That's why I wanted to create Lit Letters. I wanted to do something that would actually make a difference in this. And that starts at the foundations. So that starts with letter learning. Because when your child can read their letters and knows all of their sounds, then they can start reading words and sentences and books. But if you just leave it up to chance, maybe I'm going to get a good teacher, maybe I'm not, then, and just let your kid on their iPad all day, you're not setting your kid up for success. You are the leader in their literacy. You can easily and in fun and interactive, playful ways help them to become readers. And without reading, they're never going to be leaders. Reading is the foundation for all leadership, for great jobs, for great parents and wonderful, people in our communities. So reading counts and makes a difference. And we want to make it as easy and fun for kids as possible to read, even if that means that we're going to have to take the iPad away because it's worth it.
All right, besties, I don't want to leave you on a hopeless note. The good news is that this cycle can be broken. Here's what needs to happen. Set screen time limits. Parents need to take control. No more unlimited screen time. Set strict boundaries and stick to them. Encourage real-world activities. Get kids outside. Enroll them in sports, music, and hands-on hobbies. Let them experience life beyond a screen. Teach emotional regulation. Instead of handing them an iPad when they're upset, teach them how to handle frustration in a healthy way. Led by example, if parents are glued to their screens, kids will follow. Put the phone down and engage in real conversations. Make learning interactive. Schools should incorporate hands-on projects and collaborative learning to keep kids engaged without screens.
Just because you see a kid on their iPhone or iPad at a restaurant does not mean that they're an iPad.
I mean absolutely no hate to this creator by making this video. As the mom of 2 little kids, a 4-year-old and a 1-year-old, I understand the need for a break. I really do. Especially if you don't have family in town to help watch your kids. Sometimes you just need a break. And so prior to having kids, I would have been absolutely no screen time. But then my husband and I did find ourselves giving my son our phone to watch something at strategic times throughout the day when we needed a break. Like if we were at a restaurant, if we were in the car, my son hated the car. And so we would give the phone to him in the car and he would be quiet. About a year ago, maybe a little over a year ago, for many reasons, we made the decision to remove screens for my son. And so no more phone, no more iPad. He does get to occasionally watch TV, watches Disney on TV occasionally, but no phone and iPad. Now, I'm not going to lie to you, it was a very tough transition at first. He threw a lot of temper tantrums. He was very upset, but honestly, it didn't last that long, maybe a few weeks. And after that, he never asked for it again. Maybe I can count on like 3 fingers, but honestly, maybe not even that. I don't remember him ever asking for it again. So now he just knows that's not for him. But we also really like to go out to eat. And so we bring our kids. And so I would like to give you some examples of things that we do if you want to make the choice to not have phones or screens in the restaurants as well. So one of the things that we do, my son really loved, you can kind of adapt this to your kid because not every kid's going to be the same, but my son loved animals. So we would get these little animal figurines and he would play with those, and that would actually keep him occupied for a long time. It was even better if we could find like a lounge area to sit at in a restaurant, so he could kind of move around and play with the animals, but even sitting at a table was okay. A second thing that we did, my son's not a big colorer, so that's really never been a thing for us, but he really loves now bread with balsamic vinegar and olive oil. So we like strategically choose restaurants that have that, and that keeps him entertained for a very long time. We teach him how you gotta go like dip and then doot and then like eat it. So it's kind of like a game for him. So that's a strategy. One of the best things that we do is buy these busy books. I will link one in the top of my link in the profile if you want to see it. See one that we use. I just bought my son a dinosaur one because he loves dinosaurs. These keep him entertained for a really long time. Now, it did take some I needed to also help initially, so I wasn't really getting the break part of it. But now, only after a couple of times, he figured out what to do in these busy books, and they'll keep him entertained a really long time, the whole time we're there pretty much, until the food comes. And so those are great, those busy books, and they make them in all different kinds of different themes. And then the last thing is we play I Spy, which again, obviously includes me, but I've found a hack that we do get some break time in between. So what I do is I bring a paper and pencil and we'll play I Spy, and he finds the thing, and then after he finds the thing, he needs to draw the thing. And so while he's drawing it, it takes him a good amount of time to actually draw it. My husband and I get to chat. So that's another thing. So those are just some ideas if you would like to try to take your kids to a restaurant and not use a screen.
I just learned something that suddenly makes the behavior of every single person on this app under 20 make way more fucking sense. Now, before any of y'all fucking come for me, I want to preface this by saying that this is not a diss against you. I'm 24. I'm not trying to be kids these days. I get it. The system has severely failed you. I'm 100% in a very similar boat. I empathize with y'all, okay? And normally, I would say that even though the educational system has failed you, it is still your duty as a person to, learn outside of that, to continue to learn as you grow, to just, become a better person in general. That's how growth and personal development works. However, I've realized that apparently y'all just were never given the tools, that they were never thought to be given to you to do this. And please feel free to tell me how true or untrue this is in the comments. I'm genuinely interested and curious. I was reading this post about a teacher who does a lot of online tutoring for kids in middle school to high school or whatever, right? And she was saying that absolutely all of them are completely computer illiterate. They only understand how things work through apps. She was explaining how these kids didn't understand the differences between an upload or a download, or a desktop and a laptop computer. Or when she was trying to tell a girl to, click on a screen share icon, she actually physically picked up the mouse and tried to move it. The early days of the internet. But it's so unfathomable, it's been around for so long. We all know to slide it, And when she was trying to explain to her, the girl was just so fucking confused and ended up using the, touchpad because it was a laptop, because it was similar to a phone. And a bunch of teachers were sounding off saying that, yeah, a lot of kids don't even know how to type properly. A lot of them don't know how to search or use search engines. They don't know how to use the internet. They only know how to use apps. Which makes so much fucking sense, but is also so goddamn depressing. Because it explains one of the most annoying phenomena on this app, and it just makes me deeply sad. For example, I write a lot and I use TikTok to promote my writing. But on so many of the videos where I promote this, a lot of people don't understand that it's a fanfic that I'm writing. Or even though I'll have several different places where I say the name of the fic, who wrote it, where you can find it, that sort of thing, the comment section will still be flooded with people asking where they can read it or where the link is, but I can't post direct links in TikTok. And I always, and still fucking do, find that extremely annoying. It's so frustrating because it's like, it's in the comments, it's in the title of the video, it is in the description, it is in the playlist, it is in my bio, it is in so many fucking places. Use your goddamn brain. But those skills to use the brain with were never taught to you. Of fucking course, so many people would be asking for the link because they don't understand how to search for it themselves. And on top of that, critical thinking, reading comprehension, and just fucking thought skills have been going down significantly over the past decade or so. Like, for example, in Canada, which is where I'm from, 49% of adults have a reading level that is under high school level. In the United States, 54% of adults have a reading level under that of a grade 6. So that means that people can read, they can understand things, but they can't fully comprehend it. They can't connect things, they can't make these connections, they can't search for deeper meanings, they can't use basic skills because they're not being fucking taught. I don't blame the teachers for this, by the way. There's so much fucking out there, the system in and of itself. This is a whole bigger problem. I'm just noticing the outcome of it. So even if you did recognize that, okay, I'm not as good with the internet as I maybe should be, especially in regards to fucking safety, but that's a whole other conversation, you wouldn't have the skills or even the idea of how to get better at doing that because it's not fucking taught to you or even suggested. And like, it's great that now they're teaching fucking coding to kindergartners, but they're also not fucking teaching them what it means to actually search for something, how you know something is or isn't safe to download. I just think it's so fucking interesting that they're teaching coding because there's such a high demand for it in like the career force, but they're not teaching things like critical understanding of literacy and being able to pick out like motivation and propaganda, as well as actual internet safety to stop you from, you know, getting in trouble, from getting hurt, or from buying things you don't need. Those are skills that are suddenly miraculously not taught in schools anymore. And with those complete and utter lack of skills, suddenly all the videos about how people didn't think that fruit off of trees was edible, or thought that Mount Everest was in the United States. That makes a lot more sense. It's depressing as fuck, but it makes sense.
Besties, we're at a crossroads. The rise of iPad kids is a serious issue that's affecting education, mental health, and future relationships. If we don't take action now, we're going to see even bigger problems in the years to come. So if you're a parent, a teacher, or just someone who cares, let's start making changes today. It won't be easy. Breaking screen addiction is hard, but it's necessary. Let's help the next generation grow up with real-life experiences, patience, and emotional intelligence. And with that, I'll leave you with this. Next time you see an iPad kid throwing a tantrum in public, don't just roll your eyes. Think about how we got here and how we can fix it. Adios, besties.